Hi, welcome to our presentation. I'm Ben Randolph. I'm the CEO of Organ Trail Recovery, and this is our phototherapy project. I just want to tell you a little bit about Organ Trail Recovery before we start going. We are a men's and women's facility. We just opened up women's side, totally gender specific. We have 6 female beds and 25 male beds. We essentially, our 2 primary goals are to make this the last treatment experience a client ever has, and to help the client take what they learned in residential and apply it to everyday life. The client we work best with is that client that's been to treatment multiple times, particularly the counselor or the case manager who is scratching their head about, if we do, we've done everything with this guy. That's the client we want, and we do well with. So probably ask them if they want to have any questions. There's a couple key points about our program that makes us different. First of all is that everything is therapeutic. Our house managers are all studying to be qualified as KDACs, and even our adventure component is going to be operated. We're training somebody to become a KDAC so that he can be a part of the adventure component. We find that it's those inopportune times, after a hard day of climbing ropes or paintball or something, that you often get the best therapy. Everything is fodder for our therapeutic cannon. We do adventures. The way our program's laid out is every day they get up 8 a.m. and the expectation is the house is clean. My expectation as CEO is I have to be able to do a tour at any time, and so all of our houses know that. Being in recovery myself, a common phrase that I use when I see a house that's in disarray is I didn't get clean to live in a crack house. So, and then from there, those people that are at the PHP level of care go to PHP group. The rest go about their day, work, school, or volunteer. And then following the day, they go and are in group again at 5 p.m. Following group every evening, they go to meetings. The expectation is that each one of our clients does 90 12-step meetings in 90 days. And there's a mix of AA and NA, and it really depends on the population we have at the time, what we're doing more of. We've been doing this long enough that we know where the solid meetings are, and we really push our guys to engage in those meetings, and gals. And also we ask that they sponsor up relatively quick. We have a great public transportation system in Portland, but we do transport people to groups and on adventure. The adventure component that we've done so far is we've done paintballing, fishing, camping, and what we do for those clients that like to fish regularly, we get them a year-long pass. We're running about 50% of our clients are transitioning and staying in the Portland area, and we are a 3, 6, or 9-month program. We take all major insurance PPOs, and our cash rate is advertised at $5,200 a month. We have a booth in booth number 21. If you have any other questions, please stop by. Along with the therapeutic element that we have at Organ Trail Recovery is stuff like the phototherapy project. Now, when Jim Grant came to me about phototherapy, he's an avid photographer and he's always wanted to try this out. I was curious, so I said yes, because some of the initial things that I saw were really, really favorable. Jim and I both have an ability to build rapport with somebody very quickly. And what we were finding was in front of the camera, we were able to tap into some stuff that we couldn't get in a normal session. Jim Grant is an LCSW in the state of Oregon. He's been practicing. As a counselor in private practice for approximately 40 years. He's been sober 35 of those. I'm sure he could tell you some wild stories from the first 5 years of his career when he wasn't in recovery yet. You know, I'm going to say this because it's real important to both Jim and I, that this is not the be-all and end-all therapy. This is just an adjunct. We've designed it as an adjunct. We use it as an adjunct. We still do DBT, CBT, and a lot of other modalities in therapy. Relapse prevention, you know, we don't do relapse prevention in front of photography. We have our clients present their first step in group. Whether they have to do it again or not with their sponsor is up to their sponsor. We really work closely with the gentlemen and ladies and their sponsors and their support groups if we need to. We really are here to be a part of their success in their lives. So without further ado, I'd like to bring Jim Grant out.
You're at like 7 minutes.
What am I supposed to be?
I don't know. I thought Jim said 15. But I guess it doesn't matter.
Thank you, Ben.
Questions?
So it's a pleasure to be here with you folks. And I want to speak to all of you. I don't care if you're a clinician, a house manager, a cook, a CEO, a janitor, you know, or any program staff, administrative staff, or clerical staff. If you're working in the alcohol and drug field, I have a question for you. Have you ever, when you're working, been in contact with your clients and heard something or saw something and you said, oh, wow, I got to remember that? Or have you ever heard something or saw something and said, I wish I could feed this back to this person so they could see how they look? Whether it was amazing or whether it was sad, but it was something important. Sometimes you get to see gotcha moments, you know, when somebody's had an epiphany or they get it. And I've had those experiences, and I assume some of you have had it too. Phototherapy, part of the reason I wanted to do phototherapy is to try and capture those moments so that I could show them back to the client or that I could have a record of it rather than my memory, you know. And so that's one of the things that got me interested in phototherapy, but not just this year. Back in 1981, when there were film, some of you may remember the film, I used to do film photography. That's my hobby, it's landscape and sports photography. And I tried to do some phototherapy back then in 1981 with film, and it was so expensive I gave it up, and then I went into private practice, and I got busy and I didn't do it. When I came to Oregon Trail Recovery, I ran into clients like Ben said, been through multiple treatment centers, and, you know, been relapsed, and, you know, and we want to be the last stop. And when you've had clients that have as much experience as our clients, you know, I'm telling you, some of these guys are better at giving history than the people that are taking the history. You know, they have given more histories about their alcohol and drug history and their family history than the person that's interviewing them has had experience taking histories, you know. And so one of the things I want to do with phototherapy and see if phototherapy would augment or contribute or, you know, detract from the clinical process. And I want to make one thing clear, like Ben said, it is just an adjunct. It's not an end-all, it's not a be-all, it's not everything, it's just one other tool to put in your bag. And the phototherapy that I do, I always do it with people that are already in therapy, in talk therapy, that I'm seeing as clients in therapy, and then we schedule phototherapy as one of the sessions. And I've also done it with other therapists, and I'll get into that later. The main advantage of phototherapy is that most of you have heard the metaphor about therapy is like peeling the skins off an onion, getting deeper and deeper. You know, like Fritz Perls have said that. And you've also heard therapists say that part of their job is to be a mirror and feedback reality to the client and that kind of thing. Well, phototherapy helps do that, you know. And so that's why I got interested in doing it. I looked at the literature and I looked at the history of phototherapy, and a lot of phototherapy involved people bringing in family photos or people being given cameras and told to go out and shoot photos and then come back and discuss it with the therapist. And the kind of phototherapy that I wanted to do and that I discussed with Ben before I started is I wanted to set it up so that in a studio that we would have it set up so that they could take self-portraits, the clients could take self-portraits, and I, as a therapist, could also take portraits at the same time using the same flash but different cameras. And then I wanted to, after the session was done, I wanted to sit down and review. And in order to review, we needed to videotape the sessions and then look at the videotape. Later on in this presentation, I will take you through a complete session and a review so that you can really get a feel for it. So the idea was that I wanted to be able to not only take the photos, but I wanted the clients to be able to look at the photos. I also wanted them to be able to see the photos and then process it with me, and I could process it with them. So it's, like I said, an adjunct to clinical sessions. So I'm going to take you through a session, but before I do that, I just want to give you a few facts about, I started this in October. Ben said like mid-October, go ahead. So I started doing it. And to date, I've done 20 guys, you know, no women, but 20 guys. And of the 20, they're going ages from 19 to 50. And since one of my concerns in doing this was to be exploratory, to see if it paid off or didn't pay off, I wanted to see if it contributed to recovery or detracted from recovery. It's important to note that only 2 people out of the 20 have relapsed, you know, during the process. They don't relapse because of phototherapy, they just relapse. So before I get into the specifics of an actual session, I took about several thousand photos. And I want to tell you a few personal things about me. I mentioned I was an amateur photographer. I am an amateur photographer. Landscape photos, sports photos, that kind of thing. I've never shot a flash photo until this past year. And that's amazing because if you're in Oregon, it rains a lot in Oregon, you probably heard. You probably should shoot flash photos indoors if you live in Oregon, but I never did. And so I had to learn how to shoot flash, but that was good for me because it's like, I see it as a preventive thing, you know, preventing Alzheimer's. For one thing, you know, if I have a new thing that I have to learn how to do. So I learned how to do flash photography as part of this project too. And what I want to do is, like when I started this, I sent photos to a professional studio photographer that takes portraits for a living and asked them to identify out of the thousands of photos that I'd taken, photos that showed openness or authenticity or vulnerability, you know, because I see those 3 as pretty close. And then later, I had an addict who's a photographer also do the same thing. So those are the photos I'd like to show you first. But after we see those photos, then I'll take you and show you how the sessions go. And before I start the photos, I want to tell you a little bit about the process. And the process starts with an initial session. And in that session, I'm doing a therapy session, and I say, okay, 15 minutes, we're going to go down, and we just play around with the camera. They get used to the umbrella and the lights and the flash. They learn how to do the self photos. I teach them how to do that, use the remote, and that's the initial session. Then the next week, in the therapy session, they know that we're going to spend 30 to 40 minutes in session number 1. And you'll hear session number 1 with a real client in a little bit. And then after session number 1, we do a review session. And that's where we watch the videotape and talk about the photos, and you hear an example of that. Then, when we do the 3rd and 4th session, then sometimes we're into other issues like grief, mourning, loss, trauma, those kinds of things, and I'll have an example of that later. But before I do that, let me show you some photos that a non-addict photographer thought represented vulnerability or openness. Mickey was one that they selected. Buddy is another. And these are photos that they thought demonstrated openness, vulnerability. Sam? Sam? Sam I am. Toby? This particular photo of Toby, I want you to sort of try and remember because you're going to see it again. Stan? Now this fellow doesn't look too open, does he? You know, this fellow is striking in his guardedness and don't mess with me. You know, you've seen clients like this. I know some of you clinicians have, and you know it doesn't always stay like this. Once you connect with them, things lighten up, you know. So this wasn't chosen by one of the photographers, you know, for an openness, but it could have. And this last photo of him is like 2 months later. He's one of the clients that relapsed, and Ben said, we sent him to a higher level of care. He went to a higher level of care, came back, and this is a phototherapy session where he's working with another therapist, and I'm taking the pictures. And you can see he's less guarded in this photo. But he wasn't selected by the people that selected openness. But I wanted you to see that as a transition to the photos that come next are the photos that were selected by a photographer who's also NAC. And some of these are similar, which I found amazing that they would pick similar photos. And this is the one I asked you to remember. We'll see it again later. Now, as we're going on, we're moving into a session, and all you have to do is listen. This is the first session. So close your eyes. Just relax a little bit. And like I said, I want you to think of, like the last thing we're going to be doing. I want you to realize your brain can be like a VCR or a DVD, fast forward, rewind, pause, play. And when you go back in time, we start at age 20, go back 19, 18, 17, sweet 16, 15. When we get down to 10, 9, 8, 7, pick those dates and just stop, even though I keep talking. 10, 9, 8, 7. So you pick the time, a date, that's how old you are now. And I want you to go in your head and see in your mind where you lived at that age that you stopped at. The house, the apartment, wherever you lived. When you see it, nod your head. Cool. Now, you and I are going to get on a magic carpet. It's a magic carpet because nobody can see us. Nobody. It's also a magic carpet because we can be at our age that we are right now. We're age by on the carpet. It's flying through your house. I can't see it. And you're going to see everybody in your family, including yourself, at the age that you get. Flies through the house. You know the house, I know. Take me to the room where most of the people are. Sometimes it's the kitchen. Sometimes it's the living room.